There's something that just doesn't make sense when it comes to Boruto's timeskip. Boruto goes from a character that without the karma struggles to fight against low Kage level fighters like Ao to someone in the timeskip who can defeat god tier characters and even have a decent fight with someone like Juro who surpassed those god tier characters. If Boruto was relying on the karma, that would have made much more sense. However, he didn't, because he couldn't actually use the karma and all the powers that Momoshiki had access to. As if he did, as Boruto quotes himself, he would die. But now, after 36 chapters of peak Boruto, Ikemoto has finally revealed all the abilities that made Boruto a god tier character after the timeskip, even though he didn't have access to the karma. And when you put all these abilities together, you start to realize that Boruto's entire timeskip arc dealt with fixing all of the weaknesses he had in part 1. And that comes from the perfect teachers that he ended up having. It's not just about one ability, it's about the accumulation of things that Boruto ended up learning in the timeskip. And in this video, I'm going to break down all these abilities and changes that compounded together to make Boruto so much stronger. And the last ability that we're going to discuss is extremely underrated. The first piece of the puzzle, which we're going to be focusing on in the beginning, is about Boruto's body, something that is easily overlooked. Because when we look at Boruto's performances, we see a Boruto who struggles with two main aspects: his physical durability and his chakra reserves. These two attributes are linked together due to the fact that shinobis amp their bodies using chakra. Although chakra control is a key aspect in this when it comes to being able to amp your body, your chakra reserves is another equally as important aspect. Since Boruto struggled with the latter, his durability has always been a problem whenever he fought versus stronger opponents. This is clearly evident in the fact that Boruto can only manage to create a small amount of clones, and the fact that Kakashi has told us multiple times that Boruto just doesn't compare to Naruto when it comes to his chakra reserves. And if you watch Boruto's fights in part 1, you would see that Boruto can't take as many hits as other fighters like we have with Naruto in part 1, because Naruto could take them like there is no tomorrow. However, Boruto has to be a lot more cautious. But this problem was slowly getting resolved, and it started a little bit before the timeskip, as Boruto finally became a full Otsutsuki. Becoming a full Otsutsuki fundamentally changed the body that Boruto had to work with. He was given a body that was naturally built to reach a level of power that a normal human and a normal shinobi simply couldn't reach. The Otsutsuki body operates completely different from that of a human. From a biological perspective, the Otsutsukis appear to be functionally immortal. This doesn't mean that they cannot be killed, but what it actually means is that their bodies do not naturally age and die like humans do. We know this to be true because we know that Otsutsuki are capable of living for thousands of years. So when Boruto became an Otsutsuki, he didn't just gain a new set of abilities. His entire biological function ended up changing. And this is important when it comes to Boruto's chakra control, as Otsutsuki naturally possess greater chakra control compared to normal humans. This is why characters like Kage have abilities where they're capable of utilizing almost 100% of their chakra control. This is something that Boruto has struggled, especially during the beginning of the series. Although we still see some aspects of these struggles, especially when we see him fight versus Juro, this is a problem that hasn't increased throughout the timeskip. It actually has decreased. When it comes to that fight in particular, the one thing that we have to understand is that Boruto's sword breaking wasn't necessarily due to the fact that he didn't have enough chakra control, didn't have a full mastery of it. His main problem was that he lost control when it comes to determining how much chakra he should input into his sword and his attacks against an opponent as strong as Juro. And Juro was overwhelming him throughout most of the fight, and Boruto, as he gradually got beat down, he slowly started to slip back into some old tendencies. Also, we have to keep in mind the fact that Boruto has not only to watch out about the chakra input that he puts into his sword and all of his abilities, but he also has to keep a layer of chakra so that he can control Momoshiki. This is extremely important as Boruto has many more factors to think about when it comes to controlling Momoshiki. We know that Boruto having chakra is a key aspect of him being able to push Momoshiki back. So the question now is, how does Boruto choose to bypass this problem? Although his chakra control got better throughout the time skip, we see him use chakra in a different way. The fix to the problem of Boruto not having large amount of chakra reserves is Boruto developing ninjutsu. This ninjutsu in specific is the Rasengan Uzuhiko, which allows him to not just use his own chakra, but use the energy of the planet to amp his own Rasengan. If you struggle with your chakra reserves, how about you lean onto something that is not from yourself, energy that comes from the planet, and utilize that to amp your abilities. This ability and this feat is something that is quite Otsutsuki-like, because we have seen Otsutsuki's like Momoshiki be able to suck in chakra from other dimensions as he was able to do, and it was clearly explained in the light novel. And we have a character like Tonori who is able to control celestial objects like the moon, which he planned on hurling at the earth to destroy it in the past. So from a biological perspective, Boruto's potential significantly greater the moment he became an Otsutsuki. And this is what makes everything that he ends up learning and acquiring throughout the time skip even more important, as Boruto now has the necessary foundation to actually reach higher levels of potential. Even though Boruto was not using the karma throughout the time skip, he still inherited this raw Otsutsuki base and abilities that allows him to become much stronger. And this is extremely important because a lot of subtle changes begin to happen for Boruto after he becomes a full Otsutsuki. We see these changes happen slowly, where Boruto and Kawaki are slowly able to awaken various Otsutsuki abilities. And it can also be theorized that based off the information that we have been given, the fact that Boruto and Kawaki did not instantly learn these abilities, these are abilities that slowly manifested after a given amount of time was passed. We see Boruto and Kawaki be able to first hide their chakra signal, then it evolves to a model telling us that later on they will be able to fly. These Otsutsuki abilities do not spawn at once, they gradually appear as an Otsutsuki accumulates more experience. And this brings me on to the most important part of Boruto's transformation that allows him to become this god tier fighter, and that is the change with his fighting style. There are two major components of Boruto's previous fighting style and why the one that he has now makes a massive difference. To understand that, we first need to understand Boruto's previous style and why Sasuke likely encouraged Boruto to change and adapt. Because in the past, Boruto was primarily a hand-to-hand fighter. This is what he does throughout most of his fights during the first part of the series. While this style ended up working, there was actually an underlying problem. And that is when you look at what Boruto is naturally talented at. And when you look at this talent that Boruto has, you'd realize that there is a style that is far more suitable for Boruto to use. Because Boruto is primarily a tactical fighter rather than somebody who uses blunt force to overwhelm his opponent with the raw power that he has. Boruto doesn't specialize in raw power like we see with Naruto. And that's because he is actually a tactician, somebody who uses his IQ. We know that Boruto was able to complete the tuning exams quite easily, but something that is not also discussed is the battle IQ that Boruto has. If Boruto was blessed with high levels of chakra reserves like Naruto, he could utilize the clones as a part of the tactics that he can have, which would allow Boruto to be much more effective. But because Boruto has limitations when it comes to his raw power, his raw chakra reserves, and he couldn't implement multiple clones to add to his tactical versatility, Boruto has limitations when it comes to hand-to-hand combat. And it is why Boruto was simply not suited for that style. It wasn't his highest suitability. Because of this, in the past, we see a Boruto that has to be extremely intelligent about how he uses his chakra reserves. We see Boruto use wind style in very unique ways that we simply didn't see in the past, and the way that he uses his clones is quite intriguing. And the problem with Boruto's chakra reserves didn't necessarily disappear, as we have discussed when Boruto becomes a full Otsutsuki, because of the fact that he has to conserve a high level of chakra to controlling Momoshiki. So what Boruto actually had to change was his fighting style, as controlling Momoshiki requires chakra and Boruto already doesn't have vast chakra reserves. So So what does Sasuke teach Boruto and tell him to focus on? This is where Boruto ends up being taught Sasuke's sword style, the Uchiha style, which stems from Aijutsu, which the Boruto database describes as a sword technique developed and honed by Sasuke. He utilizes movements similar to Japanese Ai, where the enemy is slashed during the same movements used to draw the sword from the sheath. He can also use lightning style chakra to coat the blade and increase its sharpness. This fighting style, as we can see from the description, is all about efficiency of movements and also chakra utilization. It is about the exact amount of chakra that you are using for every single movement. That is what counts when it comes to this fighting style. This is why it is a lot better than the one that Boruto had in the past. But using a sword creates another problem. Boruto at the time had a decision. If he truly wanted to become a god tier fighter, he had to solve two major issues. And that is combat range and being able to utilize ninjutsu while fighting. Starting with the latter, ninjutsu is incredibly important in the Boruto series, because shinobis are constantly utilizing hand signs to perform different sorts of techniques. But if you're a swordsman, how are you supposed to utilize ninjutsu when your hands are occupied? And this is where Sasuke was probably the perfect person to teach Boruto. Because what makes Boruto's style so unique is how similar it is to Sasuke's fighting style after Sasuke lost his arm. This is important because Sasuke was forced to figure out how to use one arm with a sword, which we see him being capable of doing quite well in the Boruto series. But this is not the only thing. Sasuke is also able to perform ninjutsu at the same time. And this combination is what allows Boruto to do similar things, except Boruto has the advantage of having two arms. So he can take the principles that Sasuke developed and push it even further. We've already seen Boruto use his one-handed style to fight against Jiraiya. He was even able to target Jiraiya's leg, and using an incredible one-handed style technique, he was able to take it off. This is a feat that is extremely difficult due to the opponent that Boruto was fighting at the time. But Boruto has also shown mastery at one-handed ninjutsu. He is able to create purple lightning style utilizing only one hand. And this is a massive feat when you consider how difficult it is to perform advanced ninjutsu with one hand. Haku in the past was glazed and praised for being able to perform this feat, and there are very few shinobi who actually have demonstrated a similar ability. However, even though Boruto's fighting style is a lot better with all the natural talent that he has, the IQ, and the tactical fighter that he is, there is still one more problem. And that is the limitation of range when it comes to using a sword. Because just like hand-to-hand combat, there are natural limits to the effective range of a fighter when he is a swordsman. When you are a swordsman, you are primarily fighting at a close range. And we have already seen in the past why this can become quite a problem. To understand this, simply look at Naruto's fight against Deidara. Naruto in that fight was never going to be able to properly touch Deidara, because Deidara was a long-range fighter, so we constantly see him running away, keeping distance from Naruto while using his explosive bombs. Naruto's fighting style primarily resolved around close-range combats. This is why we have to see a Kakashi that appears and becomes important in this fight, to get Deidara to get closer to Naruto's range, as he was able to provide the long-range ninjutsu that Naruto lacked. Because Boruto does indeed have mid-range level ninjutsu available to him with his various lightning style, but we haven't really seen those abilities stand the test of fighting against an opponent who specializes in long-range combat. So how does Boruto end up solving the problem of range? We have seen in the past that there is one option that you can use. Simply be faster than your opponent. This is something that a character like Rock Lee has to rely on. But there is one major problem with this strategy. The problem is that it only works when you are faster than your opponent. If they are just as fast as you or even faster, this strategy will fall apart. And this is where Boruto's final piece of the puzzle really comes in, as there actually is another way to solve the problem of range, and that is, don't let the fight become a long-range battle in the first place. And the only way to consistently accomplish this is with the flying Raijin. The flying Raijin allows Boruto to instantly close the gap between himself and his opponent, meaning that even if somebody tries to create distance, Boruto can immediately return to his ideal fighting range in an instant. And the fight against Jiraiya perfectly illustrates why this ability is so important for Boruto's fighting style. Because Boruto isn't simply using the flying Raijin as a teleporting technique, he is essentially creating his own version of Sasuke's fighting style. As we see that Sasuke utilizes his Rinnegan abilities to switch places with objects and his opponents, to consistently manipulate the battlefield and make it a lot harder for his opponents to be able to predict what will happen next. Boruto can now accomplish something quite similar using the flying Raijin, as he can use it to extend the effective range of his sword, closing the distance instantly and ensuring that he is always fighting where he is the most comfortable. But it goes even further than that. Boruto can combine the flying Raijin with his battle IQ and natural genius, just like characters like Minato and Sasuke have been able to do in the past. He can confuse his opponents, manipulate the position he is, and force them to react to attacks that they don't even know are coming. And when you add on the fact that Boruto can fly, his aerial combat becomes another domain where he has an advantage. He can use the flying Raijin to instantly close the distance. He can fly to avoid attacks and change his position. He can also use ninjutsu while maintaining his sword in one hand. He can even go as far as using his sword as a part of his teleportation strategy, allowing him to trick his opponents and appear directly in the location where his weapon is marked. And when you put all these abilities together, you finally start to see the bigger picture. This is how Boruto became a god tier fighter. But there is one final secret that Boruto acquired during the time skip, and it is hidden within his sword style. And to find out what it is, you have to watch this video right here.